Well, hello there, Blender enthusiasts. Today we're going to be making a floor, and more specifically, we're going to be making quite a forest floor, or just a natural-looking floor. So let's get started by deleting this cube. We're not going to be using that anytime soon. And let's add a new plane. Shift A, mesh plane is the shortcut, and let's actually enable some stuff for you guys. There we go. So let's scale this up a little bit. And right away, I'm just going to set my camera to how I want to show this floor. So this square is everything we're going to be needing right now. And I want the most depth as possible. So I'm going to be zooming in and out, placing this quite low to get some nice depth of field later on as well. Let's see something like this, maybe even rotate it a little bit to get some dynamic camera views in there. Beautiful. Okay, so let's set this render up before we get started with anything else. So I'm going to go to my render tab, set this to cycles, and set the device to GPU. Beautiful. So let's go to the rendered view right away, and let's make some stuff happen. So I'm going to be deleting this light right away. And I'm going to the world tab, and I'm going to change this color, this little yellow round button. I'm going to change that to environment texture. So we are going to be using an HDRI. So if you don't have one, you can get one from HDRI Haven. I think the website now is polyhaven.com, and you'll be able to download some free add-ons, or sorry, some free HDRIs there. And you'll be able to use that as an environment for your entire scene. So what I'm going to be using is something natural, something with like a sunset. I think will look nice. Let's see, maybe Simpsons Town Rocks will look fine. And I'm going to just hide that background right away. So go to your render tab, go to film, and set that to transparent so we don't have any chaos going on in the background. And then I am going to select my world tab once again, go to settings, and I'm going to set this sampling from auto to manual, because that's going to allow us to rotate that environment around later without having too much of a delay or too much struggles with the performance. So first things first, we need some kind of ground shader, right? And the way I'm going to do this is by using Blender Kit free materials and free objects as well. So Blender Kit is what I use from time to time when I need materials, when I need objects. There's a lot in that free library, and you can download that from blenderkit.com, and you'll manage to download the zip file, and you can install that zip file by going to Edit, Preferences, and to Add-ons, and then press Install and locate your zip file, and then just install your add-on. Make sure to enable it by checking the box in front of it as well, and then just save your preferences right there. Beautiful. Alright, next up we want that Blender Kit material, right? So the second tab right there are the materials. So we can just start looking for example, dirt, right? There's plenty of dirt materials here. And whenever I use dirt, I mostly use one that looks a little bit wet as well. Something like that. And let's see how that looks right away. It should be loading if you have your object selected, that is, of course. Right, so this is what it's looking right now. It is quite large. I'm going to be scaling that down. So what I'm doing is adding a new panel by dragging this corner to the left. And I'm going to set this to shader editor. And I'm just going to look for this mapping node that controls the scale of this texture. So I'm going to drag that up a little bit so we get a nice combination of detail and the texture too. So make sure that it doesn't get like arrayed, so you see all the tiles. Make sure that you can still see that there is nothing repetitive, right? So when we're at camera view, you can see it doesn't look repeated at all. And I'm gonna draw a rectangle around my rendered scene. So press Ctrl B and just draw a box around that camera, and it will snap to it right away, and you will only render out your camera view. And that just limits the usage of your GPU a little bit more. So I'm gonna scale this up even more a little bit. Something like that actually looks beautiful. Alright, so next up we actually need some things in our scene, like grass or whatever. But before we're gonna do that, I'm gonna be trying to add some organic feel to this ground. Right now it's completely flat, so I want to have some kind of bumps going on, some kind of displacement. So I'm going to add some geometry first. So I'm going to press tab and just Ctrl R a few times to add some edge loops so it can actually deform in the other direction as well. Something like that. Let's go back to our camera view by pressing numpad 0. Right, next up I'm just going to add a displacement modifier and add a new texture. Let's go to the texture tab and let's set this to clouds. And clouds basically means that we get this like noisy kind of texture. Right, so it is way too strong right now, so I'm gonna scroll this down to something like this maybe. And I think it's too small as well. I want this to be bigger, so I'm gonna increase that size so it waves a little bit less frequently. Something like that maybe. And I am also going to add a subdivision surface just to get some smoother results. Something like this perhaps. And let's see if we need to make tweaks in our strength. So set this maybe to 0.04. There we go. We can get some nice kind of displacements going on in that floor. Maybe it is even a little bit too small still, so we can go back to that displacement and make that even bigger. And the way this is working right now is we got the displacement from this modifier right here, which we may actually be able to crank up even more, so 0.1. Because I think the reason why we're having this displacement, for example, at the water is because we also have displacements going on in our texture, so the dirt texture. And you can check that by going to the material tab and seeing if your settings are set to displacement and bump or bump only. So right now we've got displacement going on, and you can set that to bump only if you want that to be bump only. So you can see how that changes. But the displacement and bump actually looks nice, but make sure to have enough geometry for that to work. So you may even have to set that at 3. And you can of course change the strength of that texture by going to your displacement node and setting that scale to like 0.02 maybe. So it doesn't get too strong, maybe 0.03 actually. Yeah, that's looking fine. So we still have some depth. And let's save this real quick. And I'm going to save this as like forest. Beautiful. And now I'm going to be adding some of that grass. Right, and how are we going to make grass? There are plenty of plugins and add-ons that you can use to create grass or add grass. But I want to show you quite an easy way to create grass yourself. The way to do this is by adding a plane first. So press Shift A, mesh plane, move that up, and let's rotate that so we can actually see it. So we have to rotate it around X by 90. Nope. Let's do Z 90 as well. And let's just scale this down and try to make like a blade of grass. So I'm gonna go to edit mode and just grab this edge and move that up, extrude it once again, and just rotate and scale and just be random, right? Grass is random anyway. So just make sure to create a nice looking random strand of grass. And I'm gonna be editing these strands on the go wherever I feel like I need to make some adjustments. I will do it. You can select one grass blade with Ctrl L, which means selecting the linked objects, duplicate, rotate, move this to the side a little bit maybe, and just go wild with like the chaos in your grass. I mean, grass is random anyway, so it's no need to keep this controlled. You can make this as chaotic as you want. So I'm gonna do this a few more times, and then we will continue to the next step. And let's select this one, move that to the side a little bit, this one too. And let's actually make some of these a little bit bigger or smaller, depending on what you want, something like that. And something else we can do now is just duplicate this entire thing, Shift D, RZ, and just go to sculpt mode, or actually let's go to edit mode and enable proportional editing. And let's just select one of those points and press R and Z and rotate this all around the Z axis a little bit. And that's the fun with proportional editing tool. You can just move points and it will affect the rest of your mesh as well, depending on how large your proportional editing tool is, right? So you can make things larger and smaller and change how much is affected. So you can make your entire grass strands smaller or bigger. So that's just a very nice way of editing things like this. And I'm going to be duplicating this once again, rotating, and I'm going to go to edit mode once again and just rotate this once more. and push this out to the side a little bit more maybe, because grass is random. This is going to be more random grass strand. And let's just duplicate this once again. RZ. And let's go to edit mode and just do some more random stuff. And that's the fun thing about all of this. You can be nice and random without things actually looking weird. So this is looking like quite a nice strand of grass, right? So what we can do now is just join them all together, select everything and press Ctrl J. And just duplicate that once again. Go to edit mode and let's make some random adjustments, right? So grab things and add edge loops where needed. For example, this one I think needs another edge loop. And just move things the way you want them to be. And at some point you will be faster and faster in making those little edits, and things will get very quick and comfortable for you. So this is looking nice, as long as your grass looks random and doesn't look like it is being duplicated or arrayed, it is fine. We're going to be changing the scales and rotations of these strands later anyway in the particle system. So this is the last one I'm going to do, and I want to make this one a little bit larger maybe. And just a little bit nice and clustered. Rotate this more. That's too much. So just be nice and organic. It's so much fun to do. So this is looking nice. I'm gonna join them together in a collection. But make sure that your origins are set nicely, and they should be at the bottom. So at the place where you want your grass to start on the ground, that's where your origin should be. So I'm gonna be joining these in the collection. So select all of them and press M. New collection, call this grass, and just move them out of the way. Just like that. Alright, now let's add some more objects that we want to scatter around before we are going to add the particle system. We want some rocks as well. Fun thing in Blender is Blender has a rock generator. Boom, random rock. Let's do that a few more times. Let's add some random rocks, and I'm gonna be adding around maybe 4. Let's go to mesh. Rock generator, mesh, rock generator. Beautiful rocks, looking nice and crisp. Alright, so this is going to be a rock collection. So press M, new collection, rocks. Alright, I want to scatter one more thing, or maybe 2, depending on how much time I want to spend on creating a floor. You can spend time on adding more objects on the ground, for example dead leaves or sticks or whatever, maybe even some ants or small animals if you have the time. But for now I'm gonna be doing some sticks, and I will make some sticks myself, why not? So press Shift A, mesh, and whenever I need to make something organic I tend to start with a sphere, and then I go to sculpt mode because sculpting is nice and organic, and I basically start with the snake hook first and enable Dino Topo. And then I can just draw some of this stuff out into the shapes that I want. For example, if I want a nice stick that goes off to the side, I can make just that, and I can just keep grabbing parts of my geometry. And the thing with Dino Topo is the more you zoom in, the more detail you can actually get in your mesh. So try to make a nice looking stick. I should probably have looked at some reference images of sticks before I went to do random stuff like this. But it's totally fine. It's just for the tutorial, and I think it's gonna look quite nice in the end anyway. So maybe some side points as well, so it's not only 2D. Something like that. Beautiful, maybe even a longer one. I mean, why not, right? So this is gonna be a small stick. A small stick that broke off for some reason. And let's just add a little bit more of these small detailed points. Just like that. I mean, this looks quite... It doesn't look like a nice branch, but it definitely looks like something that can become a branch. So I can add some more details. For example, some creases and lines in trees like bark is usually doing as well. And remember, the more you zoom in, the more details you can get. So remember that when you have Dino Topo enabled, especially when it's set on relative, I believe. Yes, a relative detail, which means it will be relative to the camera, so how far you zoom in. You can add a little bit of those details before you add the material. So this is beautiful. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. You can make your branch look as crazy as you want it to look. I think something like this is fine. So I'm going to go back to object mode, right mouse, shade smooth. And I'm just going to be looking for some materials right away. So let's go and unhide this and let's just look for some bark. Blender Kit is amazing. Use it as much as you want. I do it as well. It saves so much time. And I think this one looks nice. So let's see how it looks rendered on our branch. And we may have to do some UV unwrapping. Yes, we do. So select your branch, press Tab, press A, and press U. And for something organic that is going to be in the distance or scattered around, there's no need for it to be completely realistic, because it's going to be out of focus most of the time anyway. So I'm going to be making some shortcuts. So I'm going to do cube projection. And now let's see how it looks. And it looks actually quite nice, right? There is no need to make this any more realistic because it's going to be a small object on the floor of our scene, right? If you want a very realistic object, you either have to spend a lot of time or you have to buy or download some 3D scanned objects, and Blender has some as well. So we can search, for example, for let's see if we can find a nice branch. They are being used in like these bottles and stuff for nice interior design, so maybe we should use stick instead. You search for a stick. This is a nice stick we could use. Maybe we can drag that into our Blender scene and use that to scatter as well. Make that a little bit bigger first. Something like that. I want to rotate this around that axis. So just do it like that. Press Ctrl A and Alt transforms and set your origin back. So this is a stick that we're going to be using as well. And you can basically just add any kind of object that you want to scatter around. So maybe you want another stick. Let's see if there is something else we can scatter. Well, this is too much maybe, but we can definitely try to edit this detail. That is too straight. That looks too cut off. So I'm trying to stick with organic stuff, right? So we can even try to stick with only those two. Which is fine as well. Or maybe we can try to look for some leaves, perhaps even. There should be a leaf somewhere. Leaf. We can also make our own leaf very easily, actually. Let me show you how. So let's go to Object View, press Shift A, and add a plane. That's all we need for this leaf, right? And maybe we need some more geometry later. But the fun thing with leaves is that we can actually search on the Google. Yes. For example, a fall leaf, like more of an orange leaf, and all we need is some kind of top view of a leaf that we can use, right? And in best case scenario, it is something with a white background, something like this maybe. I'm just gonna save that, save image, and I'm gonna look for some more, perhaps if there are some things that I can use. This looks nice. This is probably going to be tricky because this is not actually a PNG probably. And let's just add some random leaves. Maybe this one will work as well. Save image, and there we go. Right, let's go back to Blender. That's all we need. Let's go to rendered view. And let's add a new material on that plane. New, and I'm going to press home to go back to my notes. Press Ctrl T. And I'm going to open my image texture, and it should be here somewhere. I'm not sure if it was saved as a leaf. We could try this one first because it's probably going to be the hardest because it's not actually in PNG, as you can see. But maybe we can make it happen with a color ramp. So if we add a color ramp, I want this to be black only on the leaves and white on the outside. So I'm going to play around with this slider right there, and we should be able to achieve something very close to what we need. Something like that. And the reason why I'm making this black and white is because I want to use this as the alpha. So if I'm dragging this into the alpha channel now, you can see that we are getting some kind of transparency going on in this plane. And we need it the other way around. So let's see if an invert node can help us out here. And it can. So this is all we need for the alpha. And now we just need this color of the original leaf in the base color, and we've got our leaf going on. It is as easy as that. So I do actually want to add some geometry, so I'm gonna go to edit mode, press Ctrl R, and add just a few edge loops in both directions. And just gonna be dragging some of these up and down so we can get a little bit of a 3D feeling in our leaf anyway, right? So it's not just a flat plane that we are scattering around. Something like this will be fine. Right, shade that smooth. And that's it. That's our leaf number 1. Shift D, X, and let's just open our other leaf. And I can't remember what I saved them as, which is kind of annoying. This is one we can use. And remember to make a new material first, so your first leaf stays like the previous texture. And now just open that leaf, and let me find it real quick once again. There we go. And it already works beautifully. And you can see that there are some crazy things going on, but you can play around with that shader, so that color ramp, to get it perfect. Alright, maybe one more time, Shift D, and let's open up that other leaf, that green one that we just saw. This one. Oh, make a new material first, and add that one. And I want this to be a fall leaf, right? A leaf in the fall. So I'm going to be adding a hue saturation value in between that color and the principled. And I'm just going to swipe this until we get some kind of orange brownish leaf. Something like that. Looks fine. I think it needs to be a little bit lighter maybe. So I'm going to be cranking that value up just a little bit. And I'm going to add a bright contrast node as well on the right side. And just crank that contrast up a little bit. Yeah, that looks nice. Right, so now we've got 3 leaves, and I'm going to select all of them and press M, new collection, leaves. There we go. And we can even try to make some randomization in those patterns, so on the actual geometry as well, and so they don't all have the same bends and stuff, something like this. And now we've got a branch collection. Actually, let's make that branches. Beautiful. We got rocks in the rock collection, but these still need textures, and I'm going to be using Blender Kit once again. So just search for materials, rock, and I'm going to be making each rock a different texture, so we have some variations going on. This one can be that one, the second one can be this one, for example, the third one, let's see if there's a nice one, this one, for example, and then the last one can be a little bit of a grassy one, for example. Right, so that's looking beautiful. Rocks, and now let's go to our actual grass. We need a new material. We're going to be making this one ourselves, or maybe they have a grass shader. I don't know. I think it's only going to be, yeah, we don't need that. So we're going to make a new one with the base color actually set at a noise texture. So select your principled BSDF and press let's actually press Shift A and search for a noise texture, second one, connect that, and Shift A and add a color ramp in between, and Control Shift click on that so we can see what that color ramp looks like. And we want this to be, instead of black and white, we want this to be like a little bit of a grass color, right? So that is brownish, and we want the right one to be a little bit lighter brown maybe. And we want some kind of green in there at some point maybe as well. So I'm going to drag that green all the way to the left, and this more to the right. I'm going to set this to B-spline, so it's all a little bit more of a smooth transition between all of those. And I think that's looking fine. That's looking quite alright. So, next up, we can play around with that scale if we need. I think it was fine already. I'm going to crank up this detail and roughness a little bit, just so we can get some nice roughness going on there. And I'm going to link all of these materials. So I'm going to select the unshaded ones first and the shaded ones second. And then Ctrl L and link materials. And the last thing I'm going to do is actually add some subsurface as well. But first, connect that principle back to your surface. So you get to see the lighting, and then I'm gonna crank this subsurface up a little bit so we can get some light passing through our leaves like it usually does as well. So I'm gonna set this at like a greenish, yellowish color. We can even try to change that subsurface radius. That will also change the color a little bit. But I'm just gonna leave that as it was for now. So like that. And now we can start scattering those objects around in our scene. Right. So how do we add everything to our plane? First of all, shake this smooth if you haven't already. I think my modifier got deleted for some reason. So let's get that back and let's go to rendered view to just see how it looks right now. That's quite nice, quite a nice look. I'm going to change my camera just a little bit so we get some more depth in the distance as well. Just like that. Beautiful. Right, select your ground, go to particles, plus, and we want this to be hair. And we want the hair object to be a collection, and that collection is going to be grass. Just like that. Beautiful. And we can change the scale right away, make it smaller. So some smaller grass or some bigger grass, depending on what you're looking for. I'm going to be looking up a little bit, just like that. And you can add some randomization, randomization, that's the word I'm looking for, in that scale as well. So just drag this slider up a little bit. And let's just add some children particles as well, because we need more grass. More grass is better. So set it at around 20. And now you can see that everything is filled quite evenly with grass. Let's say we want to have some kind of noise texture there as well. Well, there's an easy way to do this actually. And that is with an actual texture. So go to your texture tab, hit new, and go to the texture panel. So when you go to the texture tab, it will be set on displace first of all, because we added a displace modifier. So it is targeting the displace texture first. So we have to select this and change this to the particle system texture. And then we scroll down, we go to influence, and we switch this from general time or emission time to the density. Beautiful, right? So now you can play around with these settings, change the sizes of the texture, and what you can do as well is go all the way to the bottom to color ramp, and we can just make it a little bit closer, so we actually have some nice grass with some hard spots in between where grass is missing. So we see some of that ground floor. If you still want some grass on that ground floor, you can change that white color. Nope, it's the black color. We can change that black color to more of a gray color, so it doesn't completely block out the density on those areas. Something like this. That's looking beautiful. And we can even try to change some of the other settings. I don't think that is going to do a lot. It just makes our texture a little bit more detailed, I guess. So I'm going to leave this at 2 and just change the size. Make it a little bit bigger so we get more of these open spots scattered throughout our grass. Right? So something like this should be quite nice. And I'm going to go to my world tab because I don't quite like the lighting that we've got right now. So I'm going to change this environment texture to a different HDRI. And I'm just going to select Cape Hill. So we get some more strong lighting going on, right? And I want to rotate it around as well. So I'm going to switch this over to the shader editor, change the object to world, and I'm going to select this Cape Hill. And I'm going to go to edit and preferences first to show you how you can enable that setting. Go to add-ons and let's just search for Node Wrangler. There it is, and just highlight it if you haven't and save your preferences right there. Beautiful. And select your nodes, press Ctrl T, and now you can rotate your Z-axis. So you can rotate your environment texture to your own liking. Beautiful. So something like this looks nice already. We don't have a lot of light coming from up top, and that is because we've got the very low, a very low sunset going on. We can move this up a little bit so we get some more light in the scene if we want. Yeah, just do it to your own liking, and use the HDRI that you like as well. Play around with that a little bit. I think I'm gonna set with this, and I'm gonna change this texture a little bit actually, so we get some more open spots even. Let's see. Something like that is nice. Okay, so next up we need those rocks and stuff in our scene, right? So let's select our object, go to particle systems and hide this for now. And hit that plus icon and hair. And we once again need to render a collection. So set this as a collection. And change the instance to, let's do rocks first. To rocks, we want to pick a random object, just like that. And we also want way less rocks than this, way less. Something like this. And we want to change the scale, randomization as well, and the rotation as well actually. So hit that advanced button and go to rotation, enable it. And just enable all of this randomizations a little bit. And most importantly, the face. The face is quite important, right? Something like that. And we can even go to velocity and change the tangent rotation a little bit to customize that. We can even change some other rotation factors. and it will all randomize your scene a little bit more, right? So that's looking nice, quite nice. And we're gonna do this for the grass as well, because we skipped that. But for now, we're gonna be adding another texture in this particle system as well. So we want these rocks to be scattered in quite a noisy texture as well. So we're going to go to the textures once again, hit new, and let's just name this one rocks, so we can find it easily in this texture tab. And we have to set this, it is already set on rocks, so that's nice. So we can set this to clouds and set that influence to density. And now we can just play around again with that size and the color ramp as well. So enable that, just move them a little bit closer so you can see those clusters forming nicely. Something like this. And let's unhide our grass real quick. See how it looks together. So we have some more stones, some rocks in between, and maybe we even want some more rocks, so we can enable, let's see, we can enable the children settings. So we've got children, basically add some more rocks in between the ones you've already got, and let's just set this to like 4. Alright, so that adds some nice rocks to your scene. And I'm going to select my grass particle system now, and I'm going to go to advanced, rotation, and let's just randomize that face, right? So we've got some randomized grass going on as well. Same thing we did for those rocks. Next up, I want those branches to be added as a third particle system. So hit that plus icon, and let's set this to hair. I want this to be a collection, and we want this to be the branches. There we go, and it already adds them into the scene. And we once again want to check advanced, rotation, rotate this face a little bit so everything is nice and rotated. And we want to select pick random in the collection. And once again, we need a texture. So hit new, call this one branches. Go to your texture tab, set the influence to, where is the influence there? Set it to density. And now just change this to clouds. And then play around with the size. So where do you want those parts to be, those sticks? And play around with the color ramp as well. So you can quite easily pick the spots where you want those branches to be. And we can even change those scale settings. So scale randomization a little bit more. And increase that scale maybe. So we get some large sticks and some smaller sticks. And I'm going to go to my displays, or sorry, my texture. And I'm just going to change the scale a little bit so we can have a perfect view of those sticks that we want. Let's see. You can see that one of our sticks is quite angled. And let's actually go to our stick and see if the rotation is applied or not. Let's see the item tab. The rotation should be good for this one as well. So that is not the issue. So we have a rotation that happens in the particle system that we don't want. So go to your particle system, go to rotation, and see what the issue actually is. So if we set this to 0 and 0, you can see that it still is sticking out of the floor a little bit for some reason. And it's probably because our stick is not completely straight. Nope, it isn't. So a part is sticking out. So you will just have to remember that. And apply the rotation again, and I think it's alright. It's completely alright, but you have to keep in mind where your origin is of your object. So if your object is right here and your origin is there, it will always get instanced, so in your particle system, at your origin of your object. So right here. So if I want this origin to be like at the bottom of this branch, for example right there, what I can do is press tab, press A, and just move this to the side, so where I think the origin should be compared to the geometry, something like this. So now I'm imagining this part to be on the floor, and let's see if that's now the case. Let's see, it's not completely. So what I'm gonna do is just press tab and move that to how I want, like so. Right, so now we can get that rotation back in our particle systems. So get that randomized phase back, just like that, and have the scale be a little bit less as well. So where is the scale option? And there it is. Scale it all down. Something like that looks beautiful. Alright, so we got a lot of those sticks. So let's just change the number to like 400. That's looking better. Let's go to render through and see how it all looks together now. So you can see we get some scattered sticks in our scene that looks beautiful. And lastly, I want some of those leaves, right? So go back to object view and add once again a particle system of hair. Set this to a collection, set this to leaves. And you can see that we have planes scattering around now, and they are not in the right rotation. So we're going to change that first. So select all of our leaves, press tab, press A, set your rotation to individual origins, press R, X, 90. Oh, we still have that plane selected. That's my bad. Select only those three things, those three leaves. Press tab, A, R, X, 90. And now zoom in, and you could see that the leaves are now rotated perfect. So go back to your viewport and let's select our leaf system. And I'm just gonna scale this random value up so we get random leaf scales. I also want random rotations, of course. So go to the advanced tab and highlight rotation and randomize that face. Just like that. Beautiful. And once again, I just want some kind of texture going on. So I'm going to add a new texture. Name this leaves. And I'm going to change this to, let's say, where is my leaves texture? Leaves. And I'm just going to change this a little bit around to how I want. Oh, I'm in the displays once again, and you can see what just happened. We have to go back to particle systems, and then we can just change the size, I believe, and set the influence to the density, right? So now we can change the size, and for some reason it affects both the displacement now and the leaves. So let's see why that's happening. So we renamed this one to leaves. All right, that is not what we want. So go to your textures and just create a new one, right? A new one in your leaf particle systems. And now it should be separated from the displacement modifier. So let's just crank this up now, and you can see what happens. And let's actually see how that looks. It would already look nice. Go to your render view, and you can see we got some leaves around in the scene as well now. They may be quite big, so we have to scale that down a little bit. So go to the scaling tab in your particle systems. So it should be at the render tab. There it is. So let's just scale this down a little bit. But we can add more leaves. More leaves, because it's a fall scene, right? So we just want some more leaves. Something like this, and that's looking nice. Alright, so what I'm gonna do next is go to my environment once again, and I'm gonna try another HDRI, because I still don't like it quite a lot. So I'm gonna be playing around with Kyra down, perhaps? No. HDR, and this is something I do a lot, and by a lot I mean a lot. I change so much in my HDRI every time I create a scene, but eventually it will work nicely. Alright, so I'm gonna reset my Z value real quick. And you can see that this one is already working way better, because we can get some of that nice reflections going on in that wet floor as well. And that's something that I really like. But we have not nearly enough grass. So select that first particle system and increase that number of grass to, I was trying to do 4,000. So 4,000 maybe. So we get a nice bunch of grass. And let's go to the texture and make sure you've got the right texture selected. And let's just change that color ramp a little bit, so they move closer together. And we get some more open areas of grass. So we may have to change this more to black. Something like that. So we have grass and non-grass areas. But I'm gonna change the scale to be a little bit smaller. And I think that looks quite alright. Beautiful. So we can see leaves in the sea now. We can see rocks. We can see sticks. That's looking nice. We can even move our camera around to find a better spot, if there is a better one. Let's see. So you can see how easy it is to actually create a nice random floor, random forest floor of your own liking, right? With grass, sticks, stones, branches, everything will be in there. And that's the part that I really like about approaching it this way. You can create exactly what you think should be there in your forest scene. Alright, so I think something like this is nice. I think we are lacking a little bit of those leaves. So what I'm going to do is just select those leaves, and they may actually just be too much below the surface. So what we can do is select all of those leaves and move them away a little bit from the origin. So let's see what direction we actually have to set them in. Alright, so we have to set them a little bit higher, like that. And we can just add more of those and make them a little bit smaller as well, perhaps. So let's see which one are our leaves. This one, perfect. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, 0.025 perhaps. And I want more leaves. So we can actually just add some children and set this to like 5. And now let's see how it looks. So we can see we already get way more leaves in the scene. I like that a lot. So I think I'm just going to render this out while we add a focus object. So select your 3D cursor, move it anywhere in the scene, press Shift A, empty, plane axis, press F2 and name this focus. And we're going to select our camera, go to the camera tab, depth of view, and focus object will be focus. There we go. And just swipe that or move that to a place where you want the focus of the scene to be in. And I want it to be right here at the bunch of rocks and leaves that are coming together, so we can see that nice details. And you can see the foreground is nice and out of focus right now. So that's looking quite nice. Okay, so I'm going to render this out and then I'll be back. So the render is done, and this is pretty much what we got. So you can see we've got a nice ground going on with grass, rocks, dirt, leaves, sticks. So it's quite easy to make the floor that you want to make for any type of specific forest, or you can even use it for meadows to add flowers and stuff like that. All you need is the object you want to scatter or create it yourself. You can see how easy it was to create some kind of stick. And the leaf as well. It is so customizable. You can download any image you want. You can even take your own leaf image. So just go outside and picture whatever you want to scatter on the floor. You just need that alpha mask, right? So that black and white mask to get that alpha going right. So this is the way that I usually use to create some custom stuff. You can also do it in geometry nodes. I think I'll make a tutorial on that next, because you have some more customization options and it's a little bit less intense for a computer even as well. So we'll see you in that one. I hope you enjoyed this and can use it for something as well. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, please do leave a like or a comment or even subscribe. Either one of those will help me out. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.